And here we go. Welcome to Energy Meditations. My name is Thomas Silvani. My topic today is Zen Mind, Brilliant Heart. Zen Mind refers to the sitting practice of meditation. So what I'm getting at here with Zen Mind, Brilliant Heart is really what happens as a community sits in meditation regularly. So 15 years ago, I began sitting in a group, in a community. We would sit 2 mornings a week. And these 2 mornings, there were other practices that happened at the dojo. There were even other meditation classes in the evening. But I started with the morning sits. And this was like, often there wasn't a talk. It wasn't that you were going and you were learning something new. No, this was a practicing group, a cookpot, the teacher would often refer to it as. So we'd arrive and the bell would ring at 7:30 and it would ring again at 8 a.m. And we would go off into the world, into our lives and do our things. And we did this for many years. And of course I would sit on my own as well. I would sit every day. But it's a really interesting thing to think about what happened amidst that community. And just with this strange practice of sitting in silence together. what that's all about and what that can do. Excuse me. So first of all, imagine showing up to a place of worship or practice or however you want to call it. But it's a place where there's a certain level of respect for each other and for life overall. There's a discipline, an energy. And you arrive there in the morning, and others are arriving, and some people are doing stretching. The place is polished, very clean, very serene. There's some nice artwork around. And you take up your cushion and everyone gets in place. And the bell rings. And you hear the waverings of the bell resound and fade into the sound of just life. Whatever the environment is. Maybe you got some buzzing in the building. Maybe you've got some street noise, some birds. And there's a profound sense of being that begins to become the fact. For everyone in that room is attending to beingness. They aren't there to become great at something or to show another how great they are at something or diminish another. They've all shown up to simply radiate and immerse themselves in what they are at the most fundamental level. And they do this by not indulging the mind's activities, not indulging the potentialities of what could be, what is, what was. No, they do this by attending to the breath. Focus and attention on breath, on silence, on stillness. And what begins to happen is a glow fills the room. Not a visual glow as much as a beingness glow. And it's an interesting beingness because it's as much nothingness as it is beingness. Nothingness in the sense of there's such an embrace of mystery, of the unknown, that it's almost like that unknown gets amplified. And it almost becomes a radiance in the body. It's like that clean mind, that brilliant perception of everything that's happening. Because you aren't adding anything, you aren't running away from anything. You're just so there. It's infusing everyone in that room with itself, with its own being potentiality. You know, I heard a story of a man going to this town where the town's inhabitants would gather and sit, some of them at least, in the morning together. And the man who was showing the visitor what this practice was like, took a stick and whacked one of the sitters. And this sitter wasn't fazed in the slightest. Stood strong, sat strong, I guess. And this level of resonant energy can be amplified in a group. Now, one can achieve it on one's own as well. This is certain. But I think it's very interesting, this phenomenon in a group. And what a world it would be if more of us took up this practice together. Because there's something about the practice where the walls are dropped right from the get-go. Not that you have to expose what's in the walls necessarily, but it's going to sort of come out in the silence. But also in the silence, there's no judgment. There's just a hearing. And it's healing to be heard. I remember sitting in the group and would just go through so many experiences So I could go through so many feelings. And I did have this sense that I was being seen or I was being carried through. But I also had the sense where I was completely safe. I was completely held. So what a gift it is to give that to each other. If there's someone in the community who can handle someone's feelings of self-shame or fear or anything, to be in the presence of that person can be very healing. You know, one of my teachers once said, whatever's available to every person in this room is available to each other as we sit together. And what I want to share is that I began doing stonework with one of the other practitioners at the dojo I sat at. And there was another time that I actually stayed at another sitter's house for a time. I rented a room from him, and he's a wood carver. And what I want to share is that lately I've been doing some building, and this wood carver friend, he once helped me build a shed. And you know, just by sitting with these other folks, being in this community together, you end up doing things in life together, right? You end up getting help for this or that. Now, that's a great perk of sitting together. But also, as I'm building recently, I see the skills that I saw in my friend as he was building the shed, or as I would see him carving when I was living at his place, and I just happened to see it. It's like being around these skills. I remember them on some deep level, and as I'm problem solving and doing my thing, I'm bringing those skills to mind or to the moment. And same goes with the mason, the stonemason. I also practice Qigongs with these folks, and with the stonemason in particular, we would on the site talk about how to flow the body in this particular activity or that particular activity, and even the whole tone of the work site was unlike the other work crews, for sure. There was a great respect for silence, first of all. You know, we had some noisy machines, but there was a time and place for them. But we also embraced the more manual work, doing things without machines. But there was just a greater consciousness of, how sweet it is to not have a machine going the whole time. So, making little choices around that. So I guess where I'm getting at is I both want to encourage sitting with others because you will align yourselves with people of like mind, and that we all sit more together. and to have a greater awareness that this practice of sitting meditation is not an odd thing. It's kind of a basic thing. It's like an essential thing. It's as basic as breathing and feeling and being aware of that and having some gratitude and some brilliance around that. You know, taking that posture of interest, of this is profound, what we are living now. And so, I want to encourage that kind of attitude. Because I think that's a great beginning. And of course, I'm referencing a great book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, with this title. And so if you're interested in sitting, a basic practice would be to set a timer. Take up a posture where you're sitting upright, not leaning back or lying down. Sitting in a chair is totally fine. I would have feet touching the floor, flat on the ground. Or you can sit on a cushion or a bench. If you do sit cross-legged on a cushion, I'd encourage your hip joints to be above your knees, so a slightly downward angle. So your knees are generally touching the ground. However, sometimes you just don't have the tools with you all the time, so sitting however you sit is all good. But if you really want to get into the technicalities and what's going to feel really good and your body will be happy with, then thinking about some of these things is good. So you would set your timer for, if you're new to it, you could do 5 or 10 minutes. If you feel comfortable with it, 20, 30, 40 minutes. And you could have your eyes closed, but I'd encourage trying to have your eyes open or even half open, because it tends to give you a greater presence of really the present moment and what's there with you in sort of a bodily, grounded way. Because as you close your eyes, it almost like opens up the subtle traveling that the mind and we can do. And it's all well and good. We have that potentiality. But that's not necessarily what we're doing with the sitting practice. The sitting practice is about this brilliant moment and feeling it, noticing it, and being it. And you have your breath. It's always with you. So let your breath be a reminder of what you're doing, of the practice. And just keep a gentle awareness on the breath. And try to remain still. If you need to move and adjust, it's all good. I'll finish with something that I read in a book a long time ago. The book was Buddhism Plain and Simple by Steve Hagen. I picked it up when I was about 19, and I was really quite obsessed with it for a few years. And in it, he recommends sitting every day, having a teacher, and sitting with others. And for a few years, I didn't do any of those things. And yet I loved this book, and I kind of really took in everything else he said, you know. But then I took up what he recommended. And it's quite a practice to take up. It's like it's almost like this reverberating way that you can tap into or download into your life. And you sort of get the sense of who's tapped into that, of what that way is like. And this regularity of the sitting practice and the energy that one exerts within that sitting practice. Suzuki Roshi brilliantly said, the right effort in the practice is towards nothing extra. And think about it as a daily touching in to the place of nothing extra. It's like a total cleaning of the mirror that you see your life in. There's something very redeeming and complete about the daily practice of sitting meditation. And to do that with others occasionally, say once or twice a week, or every month or so on retreat, provides an even greater expansion and resonance and proliferation of what that way feels like. And so, Zen mind, brilliant heart. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time on Energy Meditations. Please subscribe so you get updated on what's coming. And until next time, here we go.